We have a lot of cultural venues all throughout the diaspora and sort of localized community opportunities to express our art and our talent, but we don't have a centralized or a vehicle, a centralized repository of that information and also to express that. And what that conversation led to was, if we look at many other countries, the Dominican Republic, Aruba, somebody pointed out Aruba, through their missions. The missions and their embassies, they are a cultural bridge. They sponsor events, they support events. So that led to a concrete proposal. Puerto Rico should consider a Puerto Rican cultural embassy, una casa cultural, okay, in the diaspora, which would be the vehicle to link all of this activity that takes place. A cultural embassy, Casa Cultural, call it what you want, Puerto Rican embassy. I called it the Puerto Rican World's Fair. What we need to do is have a Puerto Rican World's Fair where we bring the diaspora together in Puerto Rico or here, and we invite all the artists of the universe to come together, because I think it was Clemente who said that he paints about his experience here, and Juan said that he's learning about the experience of Puerto Ricans here now, only having recently come here. So we need to figure out how to do that. So una casa cultural, auspiciada y apoyada en toda la diáspora, I think is one of our concrete examples. The second thing we talked about was strategies, question number 2, right? Strategies for implementing that. I think Rita was one that gave the example. We need more education across the diaspora so that we know what we're doing here and what you're doing there and finding a way to do that. And strategies to foster cultural management. On that third question, the focus seemed to be on technology. We are not really, we feel that while the whole world is connected, we're disconnected. It's so easy to be connected now through Skype. I don't know, somebody gave an example. Hey, mira, mira, Carlo. Through Skype. I just saw a friend, it made me happy. So while the technology has advanced, we seem to be still disconnected while the whole world is connected. So the concrete example that conversation led to was some kind of Puerto Rico diaspora net. And there are countries that we know, because I gave this as an example, the Dominican Republic has actually created a net, a website just for the diaspora. Chile has it too. So someone suggested, I think it was Sophia, who said Aruba has it, that we should look into the best practices of what other countries are doing to link with their diaspora. And we could learn from that Puerto Rico diaspora net. And then, as part of the strategy too, is to figure out how to better use technology to connect us. We also talked about, and I think it was Michelle who raised the problem, you know, it's nice to ask for all these things, una casa cultural, and we realize that it costs money, and we all know the state of economic affairs in Puerto Rico today. So what that conversation led to is basically recognizing the economic reality and the challenges that we have to support all these cultural initiatives. I think Puerto Rico needs to be smarter, and that is to leverage other people's money, right? Leverage other people's money. Leverage the private sector better, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation. There's billions of dollars out there. Leverage the hedge funds. Leverage all the private equity billion-dollar funds that I just recently heard about. The government, without a policy, cannot leverage private sector dollars or even the government sector. And it was Irving who said that there's money out there, even if there isn't money in the Puerto Rican treasury. And the NEA is a resource, the Smithsonian. So that concrete proposal was, we need to do better about leveraging other people's money and other cultural institutions. So we came up with a list, the private foundations, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Smithsonian, the Museum of City of New York. Partnerships. Cultural partnership is a way of leveraging limited resources. And so with a policy that would look to, in the diaspora, leveraging cultural partnerships. That was, and our final, I think, concrete suggestion, if I do that, my notes here. Oh, that this conversation, the paradigm of this conversation, and at least ours was, and how we understand this whole gathering today, is really talking about finding ways for to affirm Puerto Rican culture, right? To affirm Puerto Rican culture in the diaspora and to learn about each other's experiences throughout the diaspora and in our homeland. What we also wanted to point out too, that there's another side to that equation, and it's protection of our culture. Protection. That we need to protect ourselves from the global influences that is diluted, that results in the dilution of our culture. We do have a high cuisine in culinary arts, but it's diluted, okay? So we cannot forget from the equation, and we're suggesting and proposing to the commission, quite respectfully, to not forget about the conversation about how we need to protect. And that is a personal, and I started that conversation about protection because yo nací en Puerto Rico, en Utuado, but I came here when I was 6. And the reason why I don't have any cultural talent, I'm not in the arts, but the reason why I'm so passionate about it is just from my own diaspora experience. I remember, you know, and yo me vine con mi mamá sola, mi papá se quedó allá, and my siblings all stayed over there, but my cultural experience was this, and I'm sure many of you had this. So, I was born in Puerto Rico, en Utuado, en el campo, right?
¿Qué barriada?
Del barrio, yo nací en el caserío, I'm from the projects.
Okay.
Caserío Fernando Luis García, okay? De los proyectos de Utuado. So, when I say I was born in the projects, they tell me that no, en el proyecto Caserío Utuado. Anyway, but just to share what we mean by protection. So I was born there, but I came when I was 6 with my mom, but my father and my siblings and my whole family, we were the only ones that came here. So aquí yo comía arroz, habichuela, y aguacate, y verdura, y vianda, y pasteles, y alcapurria, and all that other stuff, right? And I listened to salsa, I listened to Cheo Feliciano growing up, I listened to Radio Guado every morning, my mother would be Radio Guado, you know, that was like good. And then I go to Puerto Rico, I go to Utuado, okay? And los hermanos y los primos míos son rockeros, right? They want to listen to the Rolling Stones. I said, well, who the hell's the Rolling Stones? I don't know who the Rolling Stones were. And then listening to it in Utuado. And I'm 55 years old, so I'm talking about a long time ago. So that's what I mean about protection. So I'm eating verdura over here, and I go to Utuado, and my father wants to put me in the car to go eat in Burger King. So ever since then, I became a cultural advocate. I don't want to go to Burger King. I want to eat what I'm eating in the Bronx. Well, how come you're not eating it here? So anyway, that's what we're talking about, protection. We can't forget about protecting our culture.
El tiempo va avanzando, pero queremos que todos hablen.
Dame un segundito, quiero comentar sobre lo que dijo Ricardo ligerito. When you speak about leverage other people's money, not just money, leverage other people. Leverage the neighbors, leverage the small businesses. Si un negocio del vecindario te pone 10 pesos al mes y le pone un anuncito, mira, we're being sponsored by la panadería, whatever. O sea, leverage other people's resources, leverage other people's power, just knocking on their door, and leverage other people's networks.
The word is leverage.
Todo.
Vamos a hacer igualmente ricos, un poquito más sintéticos para que todo el mundo le dé tiempo de presentar. Vamos a escuchar a Sofía Reiser del Río, ahora que se ha hablado de museos y espacios.
Hola a todos, es un gran honor estar aquí, especialmente con mi edad. No soy súper joven, estoy aprendiendo y realmente estoy disfrutando de esta conversación. And I have noticed a great connection within all of the presenters, and it's a lot of the conversations that were generated in my own discussion. I went I sort of fell into this yesterday. But I'm representing El Museo del Barrio, so an institution is a museum, sort of what museums represent our organizations, their cultural value. And connecting it to all of the conversations here, we realized that a lot of the challenges that we pose or we have faced is scholarship, so academic research. That importance and how that will really clarify a lot of the other themes and areas that we want to foster. Voy a hablar en español ahora, ¿está bien? Sí. So, queríamos exaltar la red académica, realmente tener más estudios académicos con las artes, crítica en las artes, quiénes son nuestros críticos, quiénes están escribiendo nuestra cultura, dónde se está preservando. Entonces llegamos a la idea del foro o un database system que va de nuevo a lo que mucha gente ha estado conversando, una red, un website, somewhere where all of information is there and people can access it easily. So I give an example of the new museum. They have a great system where organizations from Puerto Rico are present, like Beta Local and other institutions. And it's a very easy way to access, and it goes back to what Sofia was mentioning in one of the previous group in Aruba, and how we can also connect with other diasporas. But basically that's one of the biggest struggles that I think we face, and it's creating a network that really unifies all of the Puerto Rican and its diaspora. Another thing would be forums, so creating forums and having those voices heard. I think we have a lot to say, and today is a testament of it. We've run over time, people want to tell their stories. So how can we provide spaces where that stories can be told and preserved? So maybe a documentary somewhere, an archive. And I know that that's already happening, so maybe connecting those places that already exist, creating that system, that database. And cross-promotion in media. So really working towards who we are, what we are, and what we want to represent, and where do we exist. So that's my presentation.
Excellent. Gracias.
Johnny Corán.
Salió ahora mismo, pero...
Él viene en 2 minutos.
Okay. Hay otro, Johnny. Pues Johnny empieza. Vamos con Johnny Corán primero.
I was on my way out because I was on my way.
Johnny, you need notes?
No.
It's all in his head.
I got it. All right.
There's chill.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why not. I don't need the notes because I'm the worst note taker in the world. I'll tell you straight out, I'm not a writer. So all the notes are here. Our group consisted of 14 people, and I'm not going to name the name. Senor Diaz, I remember, and Eva, because I know them, and because they came up with some, and Chocolata, because they came up with some really concrete stuff. One of the things, and that's what Senor Diaz came up with, was that to change make an amendment in the IRS revenue code that gives some of those monies, major part of the monies that are contributed, particularly by artists and other corporations, given to the arts, instead of putting them anywhere else. To be able to create funds that are dearly needed. And that could be something that could saddle both Puerto Rico, and I'm going to speak in English if you don't mind, because I think a little better that way, easier. And I also am still recuperating, so I trip myself up every once in a while. So here I am. That could also saddle Puerto Rico and the United States. You know, there's a lot of bread there to share the wealth. The other thing that came up, and Choco was talking about it, and I love it because I've done it, was also personal entrepreneurship, which she is doing in doing sponsoring and promoting her own work, investing in her own talent, her own passion, her own drive. You talk about a vision, there's a vision right there. So it's not that the vision is, necessarily is missing. I think really the passion to drive that vision sometimes is what's missing. People come up with great ideas and concepts, and they think, yeah, this is great, and then, you know, they go home and it's gone. So the passion has to remain, okay? The intention has to remain. And Eva said something also that was incredible. That was, and you've all said it so far, and this is key, you've all said it, to create an institution where that can have major cultural significance where everything is centered. And I'm not talking about just having one in Puerto Rico, I'm talking about having one here. So we can go from there to here, and from here to there. ¿Qué cosa más linda, right? See, that's the natural connection. The other thing is, for my part, I really don't like it when all people talk about is money. Go to foundations and corporations, give me money. You know what? That's not the answer, man. That's not. The answer is getting belief in your power, your internal power, your spiritual power, your artistic power, and believing in that enough to really have that passion where you can create something yourself. You know? Thank you. I'm going to say something very quickly because again,
Yeah.
Yes, I just.
He's going to say something.
Okay, what's being done, what Chocorta is doing is incredible. And I started a school that lasted 45 years, where we kept the culture going through our music. And kids came out there playing with Larry Harlow, with Tito Puente, with Eddie Palmieri, with some of the charanga bands. I mean, and they went on and a lot of them became teachers, and you know, kids graduated from high school, went through college. It wasn't because of money. We did it with no money. We started it with no money. But once we had it going, someone came over and said, gee, I love that. Can I be a part of that?
That's how it happens.
You know, we want to give you some bread to keep that going. We love that. And what they gave us, quite frankly, was crap. I ran an institution of 11 teachers, myself as the main dishwasher and mopper and flunky, with $27,072 a year. And I did that for I don't know how many years until my late wife came in, God bless her, rest her soul, and she started putting other proposals together, but nobody gave us a dime until we proved ourselves. This is what we can do, and we can do it without any money, and that's what we did. So money should never really be the goal. You know, I'm not going to do this until you give me the bread. And look, you know what's going to happen? You'll never do it. Some people will give you bread and then say, well, I don't have any bread this year, and you're counting on the bread. And we get addicted to that, you know? And this is the biggest resource is right here.
Human capital.
Human capital, that's it. Not only that, but something else that's very important. We talk about culture. For instance, I'm in Arbunabum already, so those are my years. Now I'll tell you, April 21st of this month, I became 72 years old. So, as I'm getting younger in years, I realize, no, I take that back. I realized it a long time ago, man. I am not necessarily the answer. We're not necessarily the answer. We have had a life. You know, when I was 18 years old, I knew I had a life and I had to give it back. And if you want the culture to transcend all of this nonsense that's going on in the world, and all of this, why is it that we're not recognized? I'm going to tell you right now, we're not doing it. We're not giving it to the kids. What I do now, for 45 years I had this wonderful school going, and and I'm grateful to God for having had that experience. My best experience is going and facilitating music to a kid. That charges my ass up. Nobody can pay me for that.
Exactly.
But what I notice is I go into a school that's 85% Puerto Rican with some other Latinos and some African Americans, and I say, oh, Tito Puente, who? What? Ray Barreto, who? And forget about Ru Fernandez, like you said.
Oh, that's right.
Who's to blame? Who's to blame? That's the first thing we have to ask ourselves, who's to blame? Is it them? They're going to take advantage of us anytime they see us coming. So we know they're going to do that. Who's to blame? We are. Because we're always thinking that the idea that the salvation is money. It is not money. It's you getting up and just doing it. Everything else will fall into place.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mira, si me dan tiempo, yo quería aclarar algo. O sea, lo de la enmienda al Código de Rentas Internas que yo propongo es para que los ingresos, ¿cómo se llama? Las contribuciones por ingresos de los artistas. Muchos artistas son millonarios, muchos artistas puertorriqueños, Ricky Martin, Realizó del Toro, toda esa gente pagan millones en impuestos. Que esa cantidad, que ese dinero pase a las arcas de una fundación, de un fondo para la promoción cultural. En Puerto Rico, ese fondo cultural pues sería para el Fondo Cultural Local de Puerto Rico, y aquí para la comunidad puertorriqueña, con un fondo cultural para la comunidad puertorriqueña, y eso entonces conllevaría una serie de negociaciones. Si uno cabildea eso allá, yo estoy seguro que si uno organiza esto, que es una idea que Benicio del Toro, Jacobo Morales y otras personas, Efraín López Neri, yo he hablado con ellos favorecen una idea como esta, pero hay que hacerla bien articulada, y yo prometo hacer una versión articulada para la prensa. Muchas gracias.
Y por último,
Jory Roure.
Buenas tardes, casi buenas noches. Okay, tengo hambre. ¿Quién tiene hambre? Okay. So let me do a 30 seconds.
Brenda, ponte con algo.
And I want some coquito right now. Okay, so I'm going to try to make this a 30-second snapshot to a minute, okay? That way you love me more. Alright, so I'm a professor at John Jay College. We had a fantastic group. I love them all. We're going to stay in touch. It's great. This is a great event. Thank you so much, Brenda Rosa, and thank you for inviting me. So if I have a set of deliverables. My panel was public policy and education. Of course, being a professor, we had a lot of different types of people in the room, and we used the blackboard. I'll send you the notes. They were great. We had doctors, we had scientists, we had students, we had people that worked for NYPD, we had public policy advocates, social advocates, a former PRFAA person. So the list is extensive. So it was a very diverse group. Everybody was passionate about education. Everybody was very proud about being Puerto Rican, and being Puerto Rican and education identified as so was important. So let me start with this. One of the first points was the importance, at least within the context of the arts, the importance of an education and public policy, the importance of data collection and research. We thought of proposing the idea of a clearinghouse center. So we have the Center for Puerto Rican Studies, and we have CUNY, which is extensive. We have a very and elaborate history of Puerto Rican history in New York City. But we're missing, which, and I'm going to repeat what some of the other panelists or moderators had said, what we're missing is partnerships between cultural offices in Puerto Rico and major cities in the United States. And I think those are easily attainable. I think this board is one step in doing that. I think bringing education, academics onto this board to be able to use extensive university and college networks to facilitate what the artist needs is very important. We recently partnered, we invited everybody to bring Por Amor en el Caserío by Antonio Morales to New York City. It made every single major newspaper. It was a great result, and our students loved it because our students can identify with those issues. And we worked with the federal government, state government, Puerto Rican government, everybody was involved. We also think that there needs to be a creation of a directory, and that directory has to be updated. It has to have relevant, updated information on people like all of us in this room so that we can access that online through a PDF. And maybe PRFAA could put that on their website and connect it to institutional, like us, like CUNY, for example, is huge. We have 13 campuses in New York City, and there's Chicago and Florida and Texas, where a lot of Puerto Rican diasporas in big numbers are and have big universities. So we can connect that website and give that information so it's online and it's free and it's updated. We also thought that the creation of a listserv, an email listserv, would be significant, and they could be also facilitated through academic institutions on the island and off the island, and through governmental and non-governmental organizations as well. So we need to use that network and allow people to send emails to a certain area that can be disseminated that are relevant. We also want more PRFAA events. You know, we love this. This is fantastic. Everybody's excited. They want, when's the next event? And what else are we going to do with PRFAA? And how is PRFAA going to unite us as one way to unite everybody? And they can do that. So we think Brenda needs a cultural attaché position, and that would be really helpful for the community, for the diaspora to be able to connect and do this, because two people in one office, that's tough, you know? So, but if we had a cultural attaché, we could connect to education to the arts and facilitate that, because the arts and education is something that's dying, unfortunately. We need physical space, and I think these partnerships would be conducive to creating free physical space. I've offered physical space to the university, to PRFAA, and we need to use social clubs and festivals to expand programs and make connections that, like Johnny and others had said, that are long-lasting, that are effective in promoting programs and needs in our community. And we also need to unite academics in Puerto Rico and the United States, because we're often doing a lot of the same things, or we don't know about what's going on. Because I'm a 70s baby, and I was born here, but I went to grammar school in Puerto Rico and moved back here. Most of my education was here, but I spent 15 summers in Puerto Rico. So I knew what was going on in Puerto Rico because I'm very Puerto Rican. Even though sometimes when I was in Puerto Rico, I wasn't Puerto Rican enough, right? So there's that whole thing, right, that goes on, and that's what I am. But I know I'm Puerto Rican, you can't tell me anything. So I want to know what's going on in Puerto Rico, but I need them to know what's going on to Puerto Ricans here, and how come I'm so Puerto Rican here, because I'm fighting for all these Puerto Ricans in education, right? Like being the only Puerto Rican female professor at John Jay's, that's tough, right, in New York City. So, STEM, so STEM sciences, we had a doctor and scientists and lawyers, right? We had a lawyer as well in our panel. So STEM, investing in science. The Obama administration, many administrations, and many funds are available for diversifying science, right? So you'll get funds, we get funds as Hispanic Serving Institution to help Hispanics interested in studying science. Art is a science. You need to do scientific things to create art. So this is a very natural connection in academia to utilize STEM funding, which is available on and off the island, especially if you partner these educational institutions, UPR, and you've got all these private schools that are there, and you have so many of them, with these institutions that are public and private in the US, through the Puerto Rican faculty, they're not that many, but we can do that and write these grants in collaboration with governmental organizations to fund Hispanics in science through the arts. Right? Make sense? Yes,
you bet.
Okay. And then, and I think it's untapped. Okay, and it's millions of dollars. So the other issue is, and this is, I'm almost done. And I'm sorry I said 30 seconds, I know. But social media campaigns, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, to highlight Puerto Rican history and culture, right? So Facebook has this really great historical site of Puerto Ricans and what was Puerto Rico like and what were the women there and the men there and the black Puerto Ricans and every other Puerto Rican. And so everybody is posting and sharing this. And that allows us to keep that identity going, because I'm teaching my students what's a Puerto Rican, right? In New York City. That's a problem to me. And that we haven't just arrived, right? That we've been here since early 1800s or maybe even before that. And so Puerto Rican parades and festivals are the vehicles to disseminate our culture and our history, right? right? Both here and there. And then recognize and promote. There's this big issue that we're losing our identity because we're being watered down into this concept of Latinoism. And when we identify as Puerto Rican. I don't go and say, yeah, I'm Latina. What's that? I'm Puerto Rican, right? And that's how I want to be identified. But funding issues, because we have people on our board, on the committee, that know that funding issues that are make us water things down. Because we can't get the money by just being Puerto Rican, this, that, and the other. But there are creative ways that we could do this. So I think we need to have that conversation and recognize November as Puerto Rican Heritage Month, right? And then we can recognize everybody else, right? And so we have to think about like the bigger concept of racism in the United States and how that's very different from the subtle racism and moderate racism in Puerto Rico, right? And how institutions play a role in that, and how come we have to conflate? Why do we conflate? Subgroup data by subgroup allows us to examine the impact that policies have on Puerto Ricans, which are different than Latinos. And we are the poorest performing students right now. And I wrote an article with Jenny Rivera, who's now a court judge, right? I mean, that's a big deal, right? The second Latina, second Puerto Rican, to hold the highest position in the court in New York State. So we wrote an article about this. It's chock full of data. I'll send it to you, to everybody. And you don't have to go very far, because we did that for 3 years. And who contracted us to do it? El Centro de Estudios Puertorriqueños. So that's our presentation.
Thank you.
Wow.
Bueno, lo difícil de este tipo de eventos es terminarlos, porque realmente es emocionante, es rico, diverso, plural, complejo, apasionado. Son tantos adjetivos que podemos utilizar para este encuentro. Ha sido un encuentro maravilloso, extraordinario. Creo que es una deuda que hemos comenzado a saldar. Yo sí prometo que el informe final quisiera que hubiese una presentación en Puerto Rico y que también hubiese una presentación en Estados Unidos. Espero que lo podamos hacer con PRFAA y que quizás podamos volvernos a encontrar para ver las conclusiones del informe final. Me gustaría que eso se pudiera dar, porque creo que si hemos comenzado un camino juntos, también sería bueno finalizar ese proceso juntos. Así que creo que esa idea la vamos a trabajar, al menos dentro de los comisionados. Le agradezco a todos la participación. Quiero agradecer muy especialmente a Nick y a Tony, que han estado con nosotros dentro de sus apretadas agendas. Agradecer a Mirna Torres, nuestra directora ejecutiva, y a Javier Hernández, que vinieron de Puerto Rico para coordinar el staff. Quiero agradecer muchísimo a Brenda Torres, con quien hemos tenido una relación magnífica hace muchos meses, y realmente sin su apoyo esto no hubiese podido estar a la altura de lo que ha estado. Estamos muy orgullosos del trabajo que estás realizando y nos ha encantado poder trabajar contigo, porque hay un espíritu común en la búsqueda. Gracias a... ¿Cuál es el apellido? Rosa Cruz. Yo quiero agradecer a Rosa Cruz, muy callada por detrás, pero muy eficiente, que ha preparado todos estos materiales que facilitan tanto los encuentros. Son cosas que no se ve, no se sabe quién está detrás, pero si no estuviesen, nos daríamos cuenta de la ausencia, porque dificultan los procesos acá. Así que muchas gracias a Rosa, y agradecer también al Centro de Estudios Puertorriqueños, finalmente, que nos ha albergado en este lugar tan maravilloso. Gracias. Buenas noches a todos. Ahora Roland en Puerto Rico nos tiene ahí un buen paro para celebrar.
Píntelo para carajito. Sí.